Variety Pack. Food and friends with Canada's best. From east to west, there and back. Eat North Variety Pack. 'Cause variety's the spice of life.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Eat North Variety Pack. You might notice I'm not in my home, but that's okay because we're still going to have a great show tonight. If you haven't watched the show before, make sure to hit subscribe. We have a ton of fun conversations on here. We talk food, drinks, today politics, and a ton more. I think it's time to bring on my two co-hosts, Mairlyn Smith and Carmen Cheng. Hello, you two.
Hello.
Hi, cheers.
It is so great to see you, and I don't want to get too depressing right off the bat, but Mother's Day is coming up, and again, not to bring it down too much, but my mother did pass away 4 years ago, so this holiday it's not my favorite holiday of the year. You know, I don't look forward to it. I don't really embrace any celebrations around it. And I'm just wondering for you two, do you have any holidays at other times of the year that you don't feel drawn to for whatever reason? Mairlyn?
Our moms died very, very closely together, and I was really sad too. But then I decided that I wanted to celebrate my mom, so I did embrace Mother's Day. And when my dad died, I got sad, but I did embrace it. So you know what? No, there's not a holiday that I don't celebrate some way, and I just think that if we don't remember the way, I don't know. For me, it was a matter of honoring my mom on Mother's Day. So maybe this year, Clapson, think about something wonderful about your mom, and then think about that, and maybe that will help you get through. I know the first one was really hard for me too. Sucks.
Carmen?
You guys are gonna make me cry so early in this episode.
Don't cry. We don't have time for that.
No, I love that, Mairlyn. I love the idea of honoring your family and the traditions and all that through the holidays. Holidays. I'm a holiday person. I would say that in 2020, in the pandemic, Christmas has always been my favorite holiday, and that was really hard for me just because my family's on Vancouver, and I haven't been back to Vancouver. I haven't seen my family since February of 2020, and so that was really tough. But we went out for a walk. We went into a little convenience store. And for those of you who don't know, my last name is Cheng, Cheng. It's not a popular name. But when we walked into this convenience store, Dong, my partner, found this Coke bottle with the name Cheng on it. And I just thought, on Christmas Day, how fitting. It was just someone in the universe sending me a message to say, even though you're far apart, you're closer to your family than you think.
Oh,
and we did the whole Zoom dinner and the Zoom breakfast, but it just wasn't the same, right? To see them in person. So
was a neat sign. I think that's really cool.
Absolutely. Don's we should write to Coke and find out how many of those bottles they make per year. I'm I don't think it's that many.
I'd be we made one and we made it for you, Carmen Cheng. That's it.
And we just so happened to find it.
Yes.
Now, switching gears a bit, Epicurious, a huge publication online, this has recently decided that they're going to take beef recipes off of their website. And I think that in this movement in this past couple of years, and Mairlyn, I always tell people in one of our previous episodes, you said this, maybe 2020 will be the year where we see clearly and we have 2020 vision. And I think that we're seeing a lot more awareness around social justice issues or on issues just in period. So Epicurious has taken the beef recipes off because of the carbon footprint from beef and the environmental impact. What are your thoughts around that? I have mixed feelings. I think that it's great to generate awareness, but I also think that I know some folks where certain proteins are not an option, either for religious reasons or dietary reasons, and beef might be a protein of choice for them. So what are some of your thoughts?
I'm going to jump in here because my bigger issue is that, we always point the finger at beef, where in fact transportation is a bigger polluter than agriculture by a landslide. And we don't see people going, everyone's saying, I can hardly wait to jump on a plane and go on a holiday. So if we really want to make a big difference in in our universe on Earth, we need to stop traveling so much on airplanes. We need to do public transportation. We need to stop going in our car. So that would be a bigger imprint than not eating beef. So I don't get it. It bothers me that we keep looking at them as the bad guy, and I don't think they are.
I agree with you too, and I feel like there's there's just so many misconceptions with everything, and I feel like the easiest comparison I can make between what's happening to the beef industry is not that the plastic straw industry perhaps is maybe not a great industry, but I mean, people really hopped on that bandwagon that if they stopped using plastic straws, then the world would be so much better. And I think we found out now that had very minimal impact, and there's so many other things to do with the plastic industry that are not ideal. And I feel like when you look at animal agriculture, there are so many different farming practices in Canada that are regenerative and are beneficial to the natural lands across the country. So I think that people are just so willing to hop on a movement without fully understanding it. So I think that for me is the most frustrating thing.
I think that's a really good point. I think for me, the big thing is about education, awareness, and for media and publications to do their part around generating awareness. I think there's a restaurant in Edmonton, I forget which one, that has done such a great job of even publishing, in this recipe, here's some impacts to our environment that you might want to consider, or in this dish, here's some impacts, and then let the customer kind of make that decision. But there's some education that goes behind their menu and the options that they're providing as well.
No, that's a really good point. Just as a sidebar, the grasslands in Canada are almost like the Amazon forest in the sense that they grab, the carbon out of the air and they actually transform it. But the grasslands are an ecosystem, and it's actually because of the cattle on the grasslands that eat the grass to a certain level that allow that to happen. So, you want to make a difference, stop flying anywhere. You want to make a difference, stop driving, take public transport.
Yeah.
All right. So,
okay.
This past year, I haven't flown anywhere.
Well, I live in Toronto, and I can pretty much walk to do most of my errands. And so, one of the reasons we bought our house was because I was like 2 blocks away from the subway. So anyway, okay, you guys love takeout.
Do we? We do?
Allergy, I would totally be getting takeout like you guys. But have you noticed, because I've noticed that, some of the things, the pictures you post, it's like, that's takeout. But have you guys seen chefs creating new foods to sell too? I'm so out of the loop. So educate me, the two of you.
Dan?
Well, Carmen, I feel like you're going to say what I've been thinking, so I'll let you go first and see if you're reading my mind.
He's a chicken. How much do we know each other? No, I was going to say there is a great example of that here in Calgary. Roy O is a beloved chef in Calgary. He used to own Anju, and during the pandemic he opened Roy's Korean Kitchen. And some of the jarred and preserved items that he's selling right now, like his kimchi and sauces, customers have been asking for that for years when he had Anju. And, now with the pandemic, it gives them an opportunity to actually go and launch it. And from what I hear, it's a great option. People are loving it. We went one day and half the stuff was sold out at his little shop when we went to go get takeout. And I love it. I have 3 jars of different kinds of kimchi right now in the fridge. And when worst comes to worst during lunch, I just throw some kimchi and rice. Dan, what are your thoughts?
Well, maybe you read my mind, but maybe like a Zac Efron thought or something and got sidetracked. So, so what I was most taken by as of late, one of the best silver linings of the pandemic are watching restaurants and chefs come up with their own products. I love seeing that. There's so many examples across Canada. But just recently in Calgary, a pop-up called Respect the Technique just launched their own brand, I guess that's what you'd call it, of miso cured bacon. And it is so good. I don't think I've ever had better bacon in my entire life. You've tried it now, Carmen, right?
I have, and it's that umami from the miso.
It's unreal.
I can't even describe it. We actually have half a pack in our fridge right now, and I've been eating it this week. It's so good.
Yeah, it's wonderful. But there's so many great examples of that. I know in Vancouver, Chef Alex Chen, his 11-year-old or 12-year-old daughter, she launched her own preserve line too during the pandemic because she wanted to raise enough money to get a puppy from a shelter. So I thought it was a really cute story, actually. But it's just interesting seeing this, the ingenuity from everyone of all ages and in all cities and all industries.
Totally. Well, I'm drinking this margarita from Con Me Taco, and they're a great example of someone who's, looked at a different model, a pop-up, and offering different products. And I love seeing even new cocktail kits coming from different restaurant groups or chefs and people who are looking at different lineups that they can put together as offerings for customers, because it is a very different year and people have to entertain themselves at home.
Definitely. And one huge trend, now we're getting a bit on a tangent here, but the canned cocktail movement is very strong. And this is a drink that just came out from 88 Brewing in Calgary. And I feel like I should crack it before our first guest comes on. So. Anyway.
Okay, if you guys are talking drinks, I have a glass of water.
Okay. Well, so
Cheers.
Not always, but Mairlyn, tonight you are the responsible one of the three. So anyway, speaking of responsibilities, our first guest on the show tonight, I am so excited to have her. She is a very inspiring politician here in Alberta, Janis Irwin, an MLA in the Edmonton area, NDP party member. She is, among other things, a human rights advocate, LGBTQ2 plus advocate. This really does so much for the community in Edmonton, Alberta, and beyond. Janis, thank you so much for being on the show. So great to see you.
Oh my goodness, what an introduction.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's honored to be here with all of you.
It's so great to chat with you, and watching your rise to, I don't know if we'd call it political celebrity status or whatnot. You're very popular online now. You definitely know how to use the TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, everything. You use it so well to help campaign for just platforms and things that you believe in. But, we met a couple years ago. I think it was actually almost 2 years ago this week at a drag brunch in Edmonton. So from that point, what do you work into your day-to-day in terms of trying to support the queer communities in Edmonton?
Yeah, and in fact, Dan, I think it was it April it was before I was elected. So
maybe, just over 2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, so April 2019, it was the election was April 16th, 2019. So I know it was before that, and I still remember it was close to the election. I remember being so nervous. You were so kind and generous to give me an opportunity to speak at that event, and I just remember being so nervous. And now, like, all I do is speak to people, and so I look back at that. It was a really cool opportunity. But yeah, no, it's been 2 years since being elected, and sometimes it feels like just a short period of time, and other times it feels like, oh gosh, 10 years or more.
Well, I think the past year has felt like a decade for most of us. But, I think it's no surprise, Maryland maybe not so informed with our provincial politics here, but, we do have a right-wing government, so you are one of the few voices fighting for, I would say one of the few voices in the cabinet fighting for human rights. What does that feel like on a day-to-day basis? Because I imagine you're so positive, but that must be tiring.
Well, yeah, and you know what? I do try to be positive. I know I've actually been criticized a couple of times lately for being too negative, but it's tough, right, to strike that
of course
balance when, like you said, we're in the midst of a pandemic. And don't worry, I won't get too serious here because that's not me. But we've had countless deaths. We have the highest case rate after Argentina.
Mm-hmm.
We're a world leader when it comes to the crisis that we're in. So that demands some seriousness. And if that comes across as negativity sometimes, well, I guess that's me. But no, you're right. Most of the time I do like to be positive, and I just know, Dan, I've heard from so many folks who are struggling right now, with their mental health and just struggling with having been a year in perhaps being isolated, not being able to hug anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those people. And so, yeah, I try as best I can to bring some light and some positivity when I can.
Janis, I'm a big believer in backstories, and we come to a point in our life because of stuff that's happened. Was there a moment in your life where you went, I am going to be a politician and I'm going to kick some serious butt? Did you ever?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Honestly, Mairlyn, I always talk about how, I remember growing up with folks. I grew up in a small town, but, having classmates who were like, I'm going to be married by this age. I'm going to have kids by this age. I'm going to do this. And they had their whole life planned out. I was never one of those people. And I sort of just have always taken opportunities as they've come at me. So to be totally honest, I never, just envisioned myself being a politician. I mean, I was always interested in politics. A lot of my career, I was a social studies teacher in rural Alberta. So, always interested in politics, but it wasn't until I got back to Edmonton after teaching, like I said, out in small communities in rural Alberta that I got involved with the NDP. And long story short, that sort of snowballed into getting really involved with the party until I eventually ran. I ran actually federally. So I've run twice before. I lost the first time I ran in the 2015 federal election and put a good 2 years of my life into that campaign, but came a close second. So I stayed involved in politics. Fast forward to 2019 when I was successfully elected.
Speaking of politics, my mom and dad were very strong NDP and from BC. And the very first time I ever went to vote, my dad goes, "If you don't vote for the NDP, I'm going to kick you out of the car."
Wow.
Good.
Tough love right there.
Great mentality, Janis. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Adolescence for me was a nightmare. I was a school teacher too. And I remember I taught 8, 9, and 10 home ec and drama. And I remember, being that kid in grade 8 and just it was a nightmare. Was there, what I always tried to be the voice as a school teacher to those kids, like to try to say, it's going to get better. If you had any advice for your adolescent self, what would it have been?
Well, I just realized I'm on camera and you all get to see my hair. But you know what? You gotta be real. Yeah, it's funny because of course a lot of people, Mairlyn, asked me about being queer in rural Alberta, and actually I wasn't. I didn't come out until later in life, until I was back here in the big city in Edmonton. And but I always talk about the fact that I wish when I was a teacher, I almost wish I had been out, and I almost wish I had, and I do wish that I had been there for students. And, this came up a lot when, just to give folks some context, one of the first bills that the UCP introduced just after they formed government was Bill 8, which essentially rolled back rights for young people accessing GSAs. Mm-hmm. And that was so hard because they ended up being the first government in Canada to roll back LGBTQ2 plus rights. And so it was really hard. We debated that bill very strongly. We ended up filibustering and spending a couple of nights there straight trying to stop it. But one of the things I talked about is just knowing now that there were kids in my schools that I taught at that were struggling, that didn't have a safe space, that didn't have support, that didn't have access to a GSA, and I wasn't there for them, right? And I don't want any kid to ever feel that way. And so, that's why we fought that so hard. And, I can't change the past. I can't change that I wasn't a safe space for kids, but I can sure as heck fight so that hopefully one day no kids in Alberta schools feel unsafe.
Yeah, amen.
You know what? What you went through then, what was your stepping stone to what you did. So, maybe you wouldn't have felt that way if you hadn't, I think things happen for reasons. So anyway, sorry. All right, Carmen, I know she's dying to ask you this question.
Well, I follow you on social media, Janis, and that drag brunch that Dan talked about. I was there, and I remember listening to your speech, and we're thinking, this is somebody to watch.
Whoa!
And that day,
that's really good to hear, because I just remember being so nervous and feeling like I even had notes, and I never use notes anymore, and I think I was anyway. So thank you, Carmen. That makes me feel better.
It's the energy, and I think that's what radiates out of your social media. And you talk about the fight for people and trying to advocate for the communities, and you clearly see that in your social media, and you become this guiding light for me anyway in terms of politics. But what I wanted to do is talk a little bit around your passion for Edmonton, because I always see that on your TikToks, your Instagram, and switch gears a little bit. And I just wanted to do a bit of a lightning round. In Edmonton, what are your favorite businesses for lunch?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so Carmen, you said no hard questions, and this is actually the hardest question. I have to tell you. So I was just asked by Edify, which used to be Avenue Edmonton, to name my top restaurant, and I said to them, you can't ask me to pick my top restaurant. That is so unfair, because, well, listen, I'm just telling you and the viewers, let's just keep it here. What we say on this live stream stays here. I don't love cooking. So I really like to, how do you say, stimulate my local economy, and that means I eat out a lot. Just, I have to be, as the MLA, it's part of my job. No, it's really not. But anyways, all that to say, Carmen, I can't. So I'll tell you what I told them. So I ended up picking a restaurant out of a hat because I said, you have to say this in the article too, because there are just so many incredible restaurants. So if you don't know, like my riding, Edmonton Highlands Norwood, it's kind of like it's the core of Edmonton. It's a lot of older neighborhoods. 118th Avenue, which is kind of known as like rough part of town. It's where I live, it's awesome, Alberta Avenue. But along Alberta Avenue, along 118th, there are so many cool restaurants that, some of them you will Google them and you sure as heck won't find their menu. But that's okay. They've got something amazing to try. So I like to just stop in at various spots. There's a lot of really cool African, so various parts of Africa. One of my favorite restaurants, I'll tell you, a Somali restaurant is called Mama Asha. It's a woman-run Somali restaurant just not far from me on 118th and 95th Street. But I also love, I like some Western food too. So there's a lot of really cool places in the Highlands where my office is. So the riding I represent is pretty diverse, and so too are the restaurants that make it up. And so around me, there's a cool little strip that's really gotten, it's really hopping these days. It's got Fox Burger, it's got Kind Ice Cream, it's got June's Deli, it's got Mandolin Cafe, it's got Bia Bella Candy Shop, and it's got Janis Irwin's MLA office, which is like the least exciting part of it. Majesty and Friends, which is also a place that makes really cool things like lesbian activity mugs. Anyways, so all that to say, I name drop a whole bunch of places right there. But Carmen, wow, I'm rambling now. Cut me off.
No, I love that. And you answered like 10 of my questions all at once.
Oh my goodness, sorry.
My partner's in Edmonton. Well, he lives there part-time and he lives here part-time. So I agree with you. There's lots of gems in Edmonton. What do you think is unique about the Edmonton, like, businesses or business scene that people don't necessarily know when you're thinking Edmonton as a city?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my area, and I'm pretty like focused. I remember when I went out, I think I went out for drinks with Dan at one point, and I was like, Dan, we have to stay within my riding. I don't think we ended up because every place we wanted to go to was closed. So like really, Carmen, I can just tell you within my own riding of Edmonton Highlands Norwood, there's just so many little gems. And like I said, it's often those places that you just hear about from word of mouth. And so I think that's part of what makes Edmonton great, is just there's all these little gems that you might not know unless you unless you've heard about it. And also, I mean, it's beyond food too, right? Like just the people, obviously, that's a huge one. So many community events, well, in the before times anyways. And I mean, public art, all those things that just really make Edmonton special. Thank you.
Edmonton is a really amazing city. When we had drinks, we went to Clementine, and I love that cocktail bar. With all my travels across Canada, again, pre-pandemic, I really love an underdog city, and I feel like Edmonton has that in spades, where it's so dynamic, but I feel like other people in other parts of Canada are not necessarily willing to go to cities like Edmonton, or even Calgary to some extent, Winnipeg, Saskatoon, basically all the places I go, no one goes. So I mean, so do you try to make an effort to, I don't know, like amplify what's special about that city to people outside of the city region itself?
Yeah, I really do. And I just, it's funny because I was actually chatting with somebody kind of about this the other day, and they said, well, you love Edmonton so much because you didn't grow up here. And I said, well, I didn't. I grew up in a small town, Barrhead. Shout out in case anyone from Barrhead's watching. And I came here for university for my undergrad, and then I, left to teach in rural Alberta, and then I came back. So I mean, I've spent a bit of time in Edmonton, and now I've been here for about 10 years straight, and I wouldn't leave it for the world. But yeah, I think sometimes Edmonton does get a bad rap, and I know my friends in Calgary like to pick on it a little bit. But no, I mean it's what you make it to, and one of the things that I didn't mention, a gem, is one of the things that really helped me over the pandemic, especially at the beginning when things were so confusing and what could we do, what was safe, is just going for walks in our river valley. And we're really lucky to have a whole lot of green space. And, you know, I love going to Dawson Park, which is a dog park. So I go because I can breathe fresh air and I can pet dogs. And that, for me, my mental health, that's an important thing. Uh-oh, my cat Oregano just heard that and he perked up.
Oregano,
Sorry,
your cat, which is so cute. And I feel like, God, we could talk to you all night, obviously. But I mean, let's touch on Oregano quickly, which is a food name for a cat, which how could you not love that? So let's talk about Oregano.
Yeah, and like I said, he kind of perked up when I talked about dogs. It's become a little bit challenging when I come home from the dog park because usually I smell like dogs. So, you know, it's like he senses it. So I've started like taking off my layers of plaid before I get in the house just to kind of make our relationship a little better. But no, he's a great cat, and I have to give a shout out. I mean, I got Oregano in October from Second Chance Animal Rescue, which is a animal rescue society, obviously, and one of my friends had sent me a link because she'd been fostering a couple of cats, and I looked at the first picture and it said Oregano and it said cuddly, and I was like, oh, so cute. And so I called the number and I said, where are you? And the woman actually ended up not being far from my place. So I thought, you know what? It was a Friday night, got nothing going on because it's the pandemic. I was like, you know what? I'll go check out this cat. So I checked out this cat, Oregano, so sweet. I said, you know, let me think about it. She's like, yeah, take your time. So I drove to the pet store, picked up all the things, and I called her. I'm like, I'm coming back, coming back to get Oregano.
Aww.
So yeah, that's the story of Oregano. And I did not name him, but he was already named that. And I thought, what a great name.
It is a perfect name. And we can't let you go without talking a bit about queer representation. I know we touched on it a bit earlier, but one thing that I really love about you, I mean, I love almost everything about Janis Irwin, but I love that you take terms or phrases that are meant to be negative and you spin them into positive. So most recently, #lesbian activity, previously co-conspirator, previously gay agenda. You take all these things and you have fun with them and you embrace them. You know, when people are obviously, you know, lashing out as they do with politicians. Where does that come from, and how do you feel after you see people turn something negative into a positive along with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, honestly, of course, and especially in the lesbian activity thing, I did not expect that to blow up. But it was pretty cool just to, oh my gosh, this hair. I'm going to be one of those people who has a major problem now that salons are being shut down again. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. But yeah, like, you know, I didn't expect that to blow up like it did. But, you know, you all know, like all of us, I get a lot of hate on social media, and I love to just take those opportunities to try to make them positive. And I think, like I said earlier, I think people are looking for positivity, you know, not just in politics, but just in the world right now. And especially when it's, you know, like most of Alberta, we're not homophobes, we're not transphobes. We are, I truly believe we're a loving, accepting province. I think the same about our country. And so when folks like that share those regressive opinions, you know, it's a great opportunity to show that they're the minority, and that you know, most folks won't stand for that. And so anything I can do to really to amplify voices of folks who are being discriminated against. You know, I have to acknowledge, Dan, I've got a lot of privilege, right? I'm a white cisgender person with a secure job and a lot of privilege in my life. And so a lot of folks don't have that. And so if I can use my platform to amplify their voices, I certainly will.
And I think that's what you do day in, day out. And I think it's amazing. You know, I'm no surprise, I'm a huge fan of yours, as we all are. So anyway, Janis, I know you're so busy. You're fighting the good fight, and we appreciate you chatting with us today. It's great to catch up.
Thanks so much for having me. It was so great to meet Carmen, Mairlyn, and of course, great to see you again, Dan. And hey, all of you, when you're in Edmonton, let's get together when it's safe, and let's have a drink.
Sounds good. Or ice cream.
Oh
Awesome.
boy.
Thank you, Janis.
There'll be more than water when I go out with you.
That was great. Thank you, Janis. This is a great conversation. I mean, we could talk to Janis for probably 36 hours straight, I guess.
She's amazing. Oh my God, I want to be her new best friend.
No, we're already
In
gunning for
line.
that. Carmen and I are already fighting over that. So like, absolutely do not get in that race. But how about we take your mind off of that with some lovely music? How are you feeling about that?
Excellent.
Okay, sounds good. We're going to chat with a country singer, grew up in Alberta, but now based in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Giselle de Guzman has a new single out, Almost Home, and we're going to hear a little bit of that song and then chat with her after.
Good.
This town never felt like it fitted me. This place has always felt so small. Didn't think I really belonged here till I've been gone so long. I was tired of doing the same things. Felt like I needed some kind of change, so I wanted to follow my calling, and so I walked away. I walked away. One more stretch of highway, what a tank is four-wheel ride. Now the 12 songs on my iPhone, 2 more towns to fly by. I can see the familiar places, feel something warm inside. It's been way too long. I'm almost home. Never noticed how much this town made me into the person I am. Didn't think I really made sense, but here I am, heading back now. Yeah, I'm heading back now. One more stretch of highway, gonna take this four-wheel ride. Now the 12 songs on my iPhone, 2 more towns to fly by. I can see the familiar places, feel something warm inside. It's been way too long. It's been way too long. I'm almost home. One more stretch of highway, gonna take this four-wheel ride. Now the 12 songs on my iPhone, 2 more towns to fly by. I can see the familiar places, feel something warm inside. It's been way too long. It's been way too long. I'm almost home.
Amazing job. Giselle, nice to see you. I know you're an Alberta girl now living on the East Coast. So what's that like?
You know, I really miss the mountains, but
Yes.
the water is pretty nice as well. And I'm
Which
still working on some country music here. I feel like the lockdown actually really helped me work with a lot of artists from Alberta.
No, that's
Again,
great. I know
particularly.
we run the Blue
So
Jay
that's been
sessions as
really
well,
good.
and I feel like we discovered you after you left, and I was like, darn it. But I think via virtual sessions, we can still have you be a part of it, which is, again, another silver lining of this weird time we're all stuck in. But let's talk a bit about what's it like to make country music in Nova Scotia? Because it's probably not, not a booming country music scene over there.
It's really different. There's definitely not as much opportunities as there was when I was in Alberta. But there's a few people that I've connected with that make country music here, but it's not the same.
I know in
It's
Newfoundland you have
not
artists like Justin
for sure.
Fancy, Mallory Johnson are up there for sure. So and definitely some talent up there. But do you ever find do you draw inspiration from your surroundings in Nova Scotia with your songs?
Um, I tend to write more about my experiences and feelings, and I co-write a lot with other people as well. So we focus on a lot of their experiences, and I kind of help them um just finish their thoughts and ideas that way too.
Giselle, so I'm originally from Vancouver, a coastal girl that moved to Toronto. There's a lake, it's not the ocean, so it's a kind of a different thing. So when you moved from a landbound to the ocean, like what was your draw? I came to Toronto because I wanted to be an actor, and that's where all the work was. So why did you go to Halifax? Or if it's too personal a question, you can go. I'm tapping out, but I'm so curious.
Um, I've always really loved the water. I grew up. I actually swam
Wow.
competitively for a really long time, and so that's kind of why I went
Awesome.
here to join the swim team.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Giselle. I was wondering, country music is often a genre that, stereotypically you don't see a lot of BIPOC musicians in. And so I was wondering, what are some of the challenges or advantages of being a BIPOC musician in that country music space?
I think that there's definitely challenges that I've had to face. I feel like I've worked with a lot of artists who are very fortunate with fitting into that stereotypical umbrella of being a country artist, and there's a couple conversations that I've had with them of experiences that they would have at events where I would look back at the same experience that I've had, and it would definitely be different from what they'd be talking to me about.
So now you're recently, just 2 weeks ago, I guess, or 1 week ago, released your new single, Almost Home. You haven't released a single for a little while, so what was the process like of recording and releasing this new song?
Yeah. So I co-wrote this song back in 2019. Actually, it was the last time that I visited home in Alberta. I co-wrote it
Mm-hmm.
with Mr. Craig McIver. We're both part of the Calgary Songsmiths, and after that we kind of just workshopped our demo until we were happy with it, and I went to the studio here at FMP Matrix and worked with person to do the full production of the song. And then I worked on a music video with Rob Medwid, and a bunch of other families and local businesses here really helped out and sponsored the music video in different ways by loaning restored vehicles, lending out their locations, farm locations for a couple hours of the day, and
That's great.
such.
So
So
last
yeah.
thing before we let you go, things are slowly becoming more normal now. Hopefully by the fall we'll be, again, back to normal life. So what's one thing that you really can't wait to do as a musician when things are normal? Outside of playing for a person again, in person.
I cannot wait to jam with people,
Mhm.
and to like co-write with people in person in the same room. It's just so different. On Zoom, you can't really harmonize with people at the
Right.
same time when you're writing a song. You can't really feel like what other people are feeling in the same room when you're just over the internet or whatnot.
Definitely.
So yeah, I'm really excited to actually just be with people and work on music with them.
Well, I'll tell you what, next time we have Eat North Variety Pack, not next time, but when it's normal times and we have this show on the road in person, you can play live for our audience. How's that?
That sounds awesome.
And with that, thank you so much for that beautiful performance and also for chatting with us. It's always great to hear from you on the East Coast, and we can't wait to see you when you're back in Alberta as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's so much fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to my lovely co-hosts, Mairlyn Smith, Carmen Cheng. This has been another really fun episode of Eat North Variety Pack, and we'll see you back here next Thursday.
Thanks.
Eat North Variety Pack. Food and friends with Canada's best. From east to west, there and back. Eat North Variety Pack. 'Cause variety's the spice of life.